Hello and welcome from sunny Mapua. My name is Michael Nees and I want to show you around my home region. One of my favorite spots in the Nelson Tasman region is the Mapua Wharf area. So we talk about Mapua Wharf. The next 30-40 minutes, it's all about the local history. It's about food and wine. It's about the cycle trail and other really hidden stories and places we will discover. So I'll switch around my camera now and let's have a look around the Mapua Wharf area. So look what a gorgeous day we have today. It's actually winter season here in New Zealand at the moment. It's a clear, sunny, beautiful crisp winter day. We had a bit of frost last night, but it's just incredible. The temperature is a little bit lower, but we often get those crisp days with blue skies, very little wind, and just a beautiful, beautiful time of the year. So Mapua is located not far away from Nelson, basically in the top of the South Island, and it's one of the warmest places in New Zealand. It's very popular in the summer season for tourists. But so let's look a little bit around here and discover those kinds of little treasures you often just pass when you walk around a place like this. So here's a famous sign, Mapua. So Mapua is a Maori word and it means place of abundance, and you can just see what it's here. It's about fish, about shellfish, about birds and so on. So if you look out into the river, the Waiau River, you can imagine fishing was, for the old Maoris, was a very important food source in the area. In fact, around the corner, it's called Crotty Point. There's actually, there was an old Maori settlement. It goes right back to the 1400s. So that's where the first, Maori population settled here. In the background, you can see over there the Richmond Range that is pointing towards the east. And we basically have a tidal river here, the Waiau River, which goes out into the Tasman Bay. But yeah, we'll see a little bit more about that while we're doing the trip. Here you can see the southern end of the Mapua Wharf already, but yeah, we'll get to the full wharf later on in our journey. Mapua Wharf, as I mentioned before, is a very popular spot with tourists. We have here one of the restaurants, which is at the moment our favorite. It's called the Apple Shed. So it already tells you a little bit about what is it all about Mapua Wharf. So it was all about apples. So the area is very, very fertile, very rich, a good soil, and they grew apples here in the old days. So in the they started, basically the apple trade started in the early 1900s, 1914 to be precise. That's when the Mapua Wharf was built, and it was basically run until the 1964, when the apple trade basically stopped. So apples were important for about 50 years of the history here in the Mapua Wharf area. Let's have a quick look. There's a couple of signs aboard which shows us a little bit more. We're also catching up with a museum later on in the trip. So, but this gives you a first impression what's happened here. Look at these guys, boxes of apples, and they were basically shipped over to Nelson Harbour, and from there they went all around, we shouldn't say the world, but at least around New Zealand and Australia. And again, it's hard to believe in these days how important the apple trade was for the region. So here's another picture. It's lovely. I mean, it's fascinating, isn't it? Having these old beautiful pictures, and I love the local museum. We're getting there later on. So that is just a first glimpse of what we will see. Here's also a picture of the Mapua Wharf, a photograph. So that's what we're going to discover later on. Here's Captain James Cross. He was the first owner of the land, but I'm just jumping the gun a little bit here. So let's move on and just get a better general idea about Mapua Wharf. So right here next to me is the local fish and chip shop. It's called the Smokehouse. It's been around for quite a while, very popular. It opens today at 11 o'clock. We have Saturday today, so 11 o'clock it opens until 7. It's very popular for tourists getting their fish and chips. And on the other side we have the Remu Wine Bar, which is also a very popular place. What is cool here is this, I tell you that. So what people do, they actually get their fish and chips here from the Smokehouse and get their wine from the other side, and guess what? They sit down here with the tables and enjoy their food and wine. It's a really bubbly scene. In the summertime, you can imagine there's a live band playing at the end of the drive here, and we'll get there in a minute. I just want to show you a couple of other places. I also want to show you the cycle trail. So let's swing around here again and let's continue. Maybe a couple of words about wine. So the Mapua region, the Nelson Tasman region, is very famous for boutique wineries. So we have, unlike the Marlborough region, which is much more famous for Sauvignon Blanc, the Nelson Tasman region is famous for boutique wines, even Rieslings, as Chardonnays. Some Pinot Noirs are very good. Blackenbrook, let's say it's one of those. So there's a lot of beautiful wines, and there's also a map here. I should maybe come through. I'll just go in and show you that map. Just have to jump the gun a little bit here, but let's just do it. Let's just swing around, and because I love maps. I love maps, and it's always a really good way to visualize where you actually are. And so let's have a look. Let's have a look at the map here. So here we are. This one is a good one to actually see the northern part of the South Island. So we have Nelson here, and we basically have the cycle trail, and here's Mapua, and that goes right out to the Abel Tasman National Park, which is famous for hiking, for kayaking, and yeah, it's one of these places tourists come to New Zealand. Here we got a little map of Mapua. Mapua village has around about 3,000 people living in the wider area. So again, here we have Mapua, the village, the Mapua Wharf, and the ferry which connects to Rabbit Island. Rabbit Island, I'll talk a little bit about that next door. That's basically part of the Great Taste cycle trail here, which is also have become the last 10 years very, very popular for local tourists, for New Zealanders, but also for international travelers. Let's swing around. Let's go to Kiwi Journeys. It's a local cycle shop. I have actually worked there a couple of seasons ago. Hi. So that is Kiwi Journeys. What they do, they actually not only rent out cycles, they provide complete packages as well. So where travelers can actually do either a day trip with a cycle, or they can actually do multi-day trips. So again, we've got Nelson here. So from Nelson, people can cycle all the way through to Rabbit Island, go over the ferry, and come here to Mapua Wharf. It's about 35 kilometers. Most people would take, a few hours, 3-4 hours. There's a couple of stops. There's a peanut butter place, very famous, Pig's Peanut Butter, and there's a couple of microbreweries, but there's also a couple of cafes. on route. So you not want to rush through it, but you actually want to enjoy the day. And what Kiwi Journey is doing, they basically transfer people back again in the evening, 5 o'clock. Transfer people back to Nelson, so it makes a complete day trip. Further on, for the multi-day trips, they can actually travel for 3-4 days around the Great Taste Trail. Very, very popular, and it's about 191 kilometers, so that's another option quite a few people tend to do now. Okay, so if you have any questions, just put them into the comments fields and I'm more than happy to answer them. Okay, let's move on. How are you doing? I'm just doing a bit. Let's have a quick look. I'm live streaming at the moment, but it doesn't matter. You see, look, that's where the. What's your name again?
Hi, I'm Rama.
Rama, nice to meet you, Rama. So that's the inside the shop. Kiwi Journeys. E-bikes have become so popular, haven't they? I mean, that's what people now do. There's a whole brigade. Look at that. They're all e-bikes here. So people come here and they get the transfer from here, or they can actually even start cycling from here. You know, they just rent a bike and do part of the cycle trail. So it just gives you kind of an idea. It's all here, even for the little ones, children, tandems, it's all here. So Rama, all the best. I'll just swing around and talk a little bit more. Catch you later. So now, in the old days, those buildings were actually storing facilities for apples. So that's the reason, you know, they're called apple sheds, of course. In these days, we have their souvenir places, their shops, but I want to show you one of these huge doors, which were used, obviously, to open up and closing the cold storage facilities. So these were the doors they actually used in the old days. So there's about at least 60, 70 years old, and they're still here, and they are used now, obviously, as a feature for these galleries, for these shops. So again, very, very popular for people to look at this. You can even buy jandals, you know, the good old New Zealand jandals you can get here. Isn't that cool? Okay, so let's move over. We got today, I just found out, we have today the local market. So it's a Mapua weekend market. Just talked to one of the stall owners, and she said at the moment they have one on Saturday, which is today, which is very lucky for us to be able to see that. But from October onwards, the market will be on Sunday, so it's a Sunday market. Let's just pop over there quickly and have a look around and get a bit of a feel of the local Mapua scene. Just give you a little bit of a break from listening to me. So no, I mean it's not, you know, it's a you know, small market. It's a small market with, you know, people try to sell their products. Here on the right hand side we have the local fire station, so very important. And yeah, look at that. So that's the official signage for the Mapua village market, which every Sunday from in the summer season, from October onwards, between 9 and 2 p.m. Let's have a swing by and just quickly go through it. So, you know, for visitors to the region, I would highly recommend, if you're around on the weekend, pop in, get a bit of a coffee fix. Those little coffee trailers are very popular in New Zealand, especially on the roadside or even on the markets. And let's swing over here. So these are people selling their producers. You know, some of them are a little bit older. I guess, you know, sometimes you can find treasures, little treasures. And yeah, it's quite cool really to go through all that. Little bits and pieces. Okay. Gosh, aren't we lucky what a day it is? I mean, really, it's one of these stunning Mapua classic Tasman days, and it's sometimes a shame that the tourists seem to come in the summer season. Of course, basically it starts from November onwards until April or so, but it's really well worth considering visiting the area and New Zealand as such, you know, in the kind of at least shoulder months from now onwards, sort of like end of August, September. It's, you know, it's getting a little bit warmer, the days getting a little bit longer, and yeah, it's you know, the sheep, the lambs come out. I'll do another tour. One of my favorite walks is going up the hills, and it's lambing time now, so we'll have a look at if we can catch a couple of newborn lambs on the way. So let's just move down here. Another really important part in the Nelson Tasman region is arts and crafts. So we've got a few hidden treasures here, really, I think, because the products are locally produced by either sculptures. Look at this. Isn't that beautiful? And look at that. It's a Nikau palm, which again, you know, it's just beautiful art for the gardens, and you see them quite a bit actually around here in the Tasman region. And this place called Forest Fusion. So if you ever come to Mapua Wharf, I really would highly recommend to have a look through it and enjoy local art, beautifully done, beautifully presented. Look at that, there are more of these wheels. Isn't that great? Isn't that cool? What I like here, look at these, they're old tools they basically put together. And you know, it's really cool art, isn't it? I mean, and the prices are really reasonable if you think about it. I mean, it's 250 New Zealand dollars, which is around about, you know, about 150, 180 US dollars. So there's a lot of little treasures. Look at these lilies. Look at that, isn't that amazing? And then of course you got here some woodwork as well, some carving work. So let's have a look who's doing that garden. So it's actually a local artist, Graham Snoke. So as I said before, you know, if you buy something in those kinds of places, you actually support local artists. Let's go over to the jewelry, to some earrings and some little necklace. I mean, to be honest, I'm not an earring person, but you know, it's still amazing, you know. When my wife and myself, coming through here once in a while, we just, you know, hang around a little bit here and watch that. So let's go a little bit into the corner here where the real beautiful things are. Look at that, it's shiny, it's all shiny and beautiful. Look at this. Now, look at that. I would want that. Has a beautiful kind of feeling, and the way it's done, it's really, really gorgeous. Again, local artist. gosh, haven't been here for a couple of weeks or so. Actually, I've been overseas for a while, so that's my first trip since a while. Look at that little bird, little fantail. They used spoons, the artist used spoons to actually create that little thing. Isn't that amazing? Look, there's a white heron. The white heron again. I'll tell you a little bit more about the local white heron here in a minute when we're getting out to the wharf. But so on these lights, aren't they pretty? Okay, I think, look, there's some different woods down here. Yeah, wow. Okay, we better move on. And I could spend, at least an hour or so. Look at that, a chain. Unchained Love, it's called, by Cohen. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, let's move on to going out to the wharf area. Just a last look, and let's get out in the sun again. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
It's beautiful. Okay, let's move on.
This jewellery is stainless steel.
Stainless steel, okay.
Yeah.
Oh well, that's good to know.
So if people have got sensitive ears,
Yes,
then sometimes the cheaper jewellery
yes.
hurts the ears.
Yeah.
But this doesn't.
Okay,
So,
okay.
and this is made by the wife of this guy. So this is a little bit special.
Wow, that's
Everything on this table.
good to
On
know.
the table with the sore leg.
With the sore legs, look at that. It's beautifully done, and it's really worthwhile popping in here and at least have a look and maybe even buy something.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much
You're
again.
welcome.
Catch you later.
Have a good day.
Thanks. So that's now again, some other parts of the old Apple storage facility, the cold storage. Let's go over here now. We're heading towards the wharf. On the right hand side there's Hamish's ice cream shop. Not only ice cream, they have burgers as well. So that's very popular obviously in summertime. We've got here Alberta's, it's a local cafe. Very vibrant on the weekends especially. In summertime it's hard to get any seats really. On the other side we have the Golden Beer. This is kind of like a pub, a microbrewery, and it's a really cool place in the summer season when they actually have live music right here. Right here there's live music playing, and you can imagine with the background here, it's just incredible. By the way, while we're here, look at these manuka. These are manuka trees, tea trees, and they're producing that beautiful manuka honey. And there's some of the first flowers coming out in the spring season. And the honeybees, they just love it. Here's one, it's just flying in. You may see that. But yeah, manuka trees. So just quickly about the old microbrewery, Golden Beer. So the Nelson Tasman region is really big with hop. We produce actually, the main production for New Zealand hop is actually the Tasman region. Not far away from here, between Motueka and Tapawera. And 60% of our hop is actually exported to the US and other countries around the world. Only about 15% or so really are used in New Zealand. So let's have a look on the Mapua Wharf from that angle here. So look at that. Isn't that incredible? Picture perfect, I call that. So over here on the front, obviously we have the Mapua ferry. So this is the connection I talked before between Rabbit Island, which we have over the other side. That's Rabbit Island. That's where people basically come with their cycles. On the beach over there, they get picked up and the ferry brings them over to the Mapua Wharf area. And then they basically can continue cycling, or what I said before, people will get transfers back to Nelson. So at the moment we have low tide, obviously, so you can see quite a bit of the wharf, the structure. Here, what we have here, I'm not sure if you can see that properly, but I'll try to bring it in a little bit. Upsala. Can you see that? So this is a sculpture of Hamish. Hamish is a sculpture about a white heron. And there's a really cool story about Hamish, because Hamish used to come here in until 2010, and he flew in from the west coast, because the main breeding area is on the west coast of the South Island. And he flew in here because of the food source, and he basically walked around here in the village. And he did that for about 18 years, I reckon. And Hamish stopped coming in 2010. And in 2010, he was no longer there, so he might have vanished somewhere along the way. But what the local sculpture, the local artists did, they basically produced that sculpture of Hamish over there in 2012 and put that up in memory of old Hamish. And it's a lovely sight. It's twice the size of a normal white heron, but white heron are really special birds. They're fairly rare in New Zealand, so they are regarded as a special sight, especially when Hamish was walking around near the wharf. So this is a cool sight. This is the bicycle stand here for cyclists. So when they come over from the other side, they need some food and they want to eat something. Here on the right hand side, which is at the moment under construction, is the Jellyfish restaurant. So it's one of the 3 or 4 places on the wharf area you can actually have something to eat. So let's move over to the wharf itself. Again, look at that. Look, our friend we met before, Ram, is also the skipper for the boat. So he's managing not only the shop but also the boat. Now, this is Mapua Wharf. Isn't that an incredible spot? On a day like this especially. Let's just swing around. So in the summer season, what is happening here is that a lot of young and older people actually jumping off the wharf into the water here. At the moment would be a little bit low because it's low tide, but in the summer season when it's high tide and it's a warm weather, there's lots of people jumping in off. It's perfectly safe if it's high tide, or at least a little bit higher. So they're jumping off and they're coming up the stairs again here, and this is one of the iconic scenes you're getting. So next time later on in the summer when I do another Mapua Wharf tour, hopefully we'll come across that. Let's just walk a little bit along here. In swinging around here, what we see now is the sign for the Maritime Museum. Let's have a quick look in there. This is a cool place. It's one of these places in New Zealand. They're often not highly marketed, but if you see a little museum, local museum site, it's always worth, when you're traveling around New Zealand, it's always worth heading in there and having a quick look. So let's do that together. So it's the Maritime Museum. Come on in, it says. So look at that. All these old pictures. information, flags. Sometimes they actually have a little video calling and little music as well. So it basically starts with the Maori history. As I mentioned before, it goes right back to the 1400s actually. But 1840, the first sailors came along and the first pictures were done, and then the settlers came along. Here we talked about him before, Captain Cross, 1854. And yeah, so it went, you know. And then what we can see here, in 1914, that's where basically they started building and finished that Mapua Wharf. And from then onwards, it was all about the old apples. So look at this here, old pictures when the first settlers came over to this. This one's actually an interesting one because it shows a picture of Adele Island here on the left hand side, and a famous guy called Charles Heavey. He painted that in 1841. So they initially thought to settle in the Abel Tasman region, but then actually found a better spot, which was on the other side of Tasman Bay in Nelson. And this is another old picture of Nelson. So basically this is from the other side. You're looking towards the Abel Tasman National Park and you see those first ships, you see those tents they're put up. You also have the flagstaff here. So yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm at least fascinated by these old pictures. Let's have a swing around here and just a little bit more looking into the apple trade. So I don't want to go through the whole museum, but at least showcase a little bit. So here we go, you know, there's all the apple boxes here, ready to go. On the wharf, there's all the trucks lining up with their produce. They were checked and weighed and all the rest of it. And then they were basically put on the ships and shipped away. Look at this, you know, old pictures of generations of people. This is Mapua Wharf area from an aerial. Quite old though, I mean there were hardly anybody living here then. But yeah, I mean it's there was also a lot of research done in respect of pests and how to deal with that. And here's another one, look at that. Look at that, I mean that's a picture of the storage facilities we actually came across before. So everything basically stopped in 1964 because the road were much better in those days. The road were built over to Nelson and there was no need for having the ships going with the apples from oh, there's another one, look at that. I just need to do that. So that's another, you know, Mapua, the place of abundance. Look at all the fish, you know, all these old fellas, you know, doing their fishing on the shoreline here with the Mapua Wharf in the background actually. Okay, that's cool. Let's go through and continue our loop, and we're not far away from finalizing. I want to talk a little bit more about the local food. As we mentioned, you know, fishing, very important. We still have in Nelson a very important fishing port. Therefore, you can get pretty good fish in the Nelson Tasman region. So let's just move over to some other food places and coffee places as well. Rapid Island Coffee Co. That's where we're heading for. So here we are, we've got Alberta's here. As I mentioned before, coffee is very important. So we have wine, we have cafe, we have beer, we have, you know, it's all here really. So let's move in and look at these little shops here. I mean, at the moment, again, it's the winter season, it's pretty, you know, it's not that busy, but in the summer season it's just humming just let's have a quick look here into Rabbit Island Coffee Co. So, hello.
Hi.
Just want to have a look through and show our viewers what gorgeous products you have. And some of them are locally produced, like the Upper Mudri, the old jams and marmalade and I'll talk. What's your name again?
My name is Jess.
Jess, you just told me that twice a week, approximately, once in a while, twice a week, they actually also do their own coffee, roasting their coffee. And as I mentioned before, coffee is such an extremely important part of New Zealand society in these days, isn't it? So look at that. I mean, it's all here. So if you come over to Mapua Wharf, pop in there and look at these beautiful products. They're all available here. Even old pigs peanut butter is here. So this is just a treasure for everybody, you know, bringing a little bit of a local back from their trip. This is an interesting one. This is Newdorf mushrooms. So there's a Swiss couple nearby. They grow the mushrooms, truffles, all sorts of goodies. Yeah, and again, you know, olive oil, it's done here as well. Newdorf olive oil. Newdorf is a very famous kind of wine region as well. It's about 10-15 kilometers away from here. We've got black garlic, that's another local company. So really there's so much beautiful food in the Nelson Tasman region. It's sometimes hard to comprehend. Okay, well, let's move on. Bye bye. Look at that old bicycle, isn't that gorgeous? Isn't that gorgeous? I love my bicycles. Okay, now, well, we're basically now finishing our loop. The old fish and chip shop has now opened. It's, you know, when I came here the first time, it was much smaller. Let's just put that a little bit there. So yeah, it's now open for business, ready to go. Hope you enjoyed that little walk around Mapua Wharf. It's a very special place. So if you come to the Nelson Tasman region, you need to pop in there. Maybe the best, you know, either, you know, in the afternoon for coffee or even in the evening for a beautiful dinner. Like here, we have the it's gorgeous sitting. It's gorgeous sitting. Yeah, with that stunning environment, with stunning views around here, you can't miss. You know, you can't miss. Yeah, you have to come here. You honestly have to come here. So lovely showing you around. I just show my face again. Hopefully, show it around. Yeah, so thank you very much for joining in today. It's been a real pleasure showing you around. I have a bit of fun here, as you can probably imagine. It's lovely to be able to showcase such a beautiful spot. So thank you very much again, and love you to support my YouTube channel, like it, and tell your friends and relatives. All the best. Cheers. Bye.